Chris, thanks for being here today on this episode of the Balanced CEO podcast. Appreciate it.
Chris, I'm honored. I'm really excited to do it. We're downtown Columbus, Ohio for this.
Isn't that cool?
It's amazing, yeah.
I appreciate you putting together this mastermind that has allowed us to travel all over the United States in the last few years, and just to be in really cool places like this, and for you to be willing to share some time with us is really awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great. And for people that are watching this, they can't see the backdrop, but we're in a graduate-themed hotel. So the wallpaper's plaid and stuff.
Yeah, it's very 70s dorm room vibes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So if you can imagine the wood walls and all that your grandparents had in their old house that you go to with the retro carpets, that's what we're in.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, Coop, for people that don't know you, I'm just going to give a quick background for them. So you started in fitness in 1994. You really got into, you were already a personal trainer for a long time prior to opening Catalyst in 2005. Yeah. Catalyst became your baby around 2005.
Yeah, in 2005. Yeah.
And then you realized through that time, over that next 10 years or so, that there was a massive gap in the education of gym owners in terms of professionalizing and systemizing their businesses, which ultimately spawned Two Brain Business in 2016. Is that right? Yeah. About the gist of it?
Yeah.
Some things in between.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I realized there was a gap as much as I realized there was a gap in myself, and other people just identified the same gaps in themselves too.
Well, I think whatever happened, you knew you picked the right time in the right place, because you have helped. I can't even quantify how many gyms you've helped. I mean, I had your book in 2017. My wife was listening to the Audible of Help First in the car, and we would take notes with each other what we picked up from it. And she put some of that stuff into her scrap metal companies. And
wow, cool.
I used it, and then I finally realized about 4 years in that all the books in the world weren't going to fit to my gym. So I finally signed up for Two Brain in 2021, and haven't looked back since.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So I love the fact that, essentially you took a blog and turned it into an 8-figure business.
Yeah, literally.
That could not have been easy. I'm sure there was massive pitfalls along the way.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely isn't easy, but it wasn't always intentional either. At first I was just writing future Chris love letters, like, don't screw this up again. No, you screwed that up again. Don't do it a third time. Just the way that blogs worked back then, people started seeing it and reading it, and they would contact me and be like, "Oh yeah, I just made that same mistake. How'd you fix that again? And can I have that template? Can I have the instructions? Can I have a copy of your XYZ?" And so we just said, like, "Hey, yeah, you can have any of it." And before I knew it, they were calling and saying, "Can I ask your advice on stuff?" And then finally, this woman out in Jersey had a yoga studio, and she's like, "Well, I have a yoga mentor, and I'm opening up it wasn't CrossFit, but it was similar to a CrossFit gym. I need a mentor for that. And how much do you charge?" And I was like, $100 an hour, like a 3-figure deal I was making here.
Did it make you pucker a little bit?
Oh yeah.
Offer that
Much? I couldn't believe it. And she's like, "Okay, done." And I was like, oh, okay, well, I better take this seriously. And so I started just kind of like writing out in advance, like, here's the steps that people should be going through in order. And eventually, a company called 321 Go Project asked if I would come in and help them, because they were selling a lot of websites to CrossFit gyms at the time. And Chris Spieler was their business coach in and so they said, "Will you come in and just do some coaching calls?" And so right away, I had like 10 clients, and I said to my wife, "This is amazing. I'm having a great time. Like 10 clients, it's good." Imagine if I had 10 clients a week for the rest of my life, and it just kind of spiraled from there. And now there's 1,000 in the program. There's 1,500 alumni, and we have a lot of connections worldwide. It's amazing.
It's just crazy to think of, when you look at that, it's like just the expansion of it from there. How many lives have been saved? How many lives have been changed on a fitness level because of those 2,500 gyms that have been impacted? And not only that, the thousands of gyms that read your emails and your books and maybe haven't signed up for Two Brain, but they are still getting the information and disseminating it. in the ways they can.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, man. Like, we're a big company. We have a staff of over 80. But some of the most fulfilling things that I ever hear are what you just said. I read it for 4 years. And Braden, who's a doctor of chiropractic, he just told me that he read this stuff for 4 years when he was going through chiropractic college. And now, when he joined the program, he got to tinker level in 11 months. Like, that's incredible. Like, it took me 7 years to do that.
Yeah.
So that's some of my favorite feedback is people who take the free stuff and use it.
I love it. So I know you've written more than one book. You've got a handful come out. Yeah. I think the last one was Millionaire Gym Owner. Right. But you've got a new one called The Golden Hour Book. Let's talk a little bit about that. I know it's kind of a real focus on habits, but specifically that 1 hour habit consistency. And can you tell us a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, man. So I was thinking about this interview on the flight this morning, and I was thinking, I actually wrote my books in reverse order that they should be read. So here's what happened. A year ago after Summit, we were looking at our data, and we recognized that there's about 12.5% of our gyms that grow faster than anybody else. So they're growing about 6-7 times as fast as the average gym in Tuburan, which is in turn growing about 4 or 5 times as fast as the average gym in like CrossFit or in fitness. So there's this small subset of gyms that are growing literally 32 times faster than everybody else. What do they have in common? And it took me a year of studying to figure it out. And I had to read every email between that gym and their mentor. I had to look at every task they were assigned, every module they completed, everything. And what I finally figured out was, if you interviewed any of these people, they'd all say the exact same thing. I just did what my mentor told me. And so for the first 9 months of that, I was like, well, that seems obvious. But the key word is not what my mentor told me. The key word is did it. They did the work. And so when I started interviewing them for Millionaire Gym Owner, what I found was that all of these gym owners had this, like, the skill of being able to focus. And so, even maybe develop while in the program, maybe they had it coming in, but they could take an instruction and just go do it. And most of us can't. And so this book is really a productivity book, and it defines like literally what I've been doing for about 15 years, which is every day I do one thing to grow my business before I do anything else. That's the basic premise. I get up at 5:30. I make a coffee. By 5:35, I'm on my couch in my basement. My feet are on the coffee table. My laptop's in my lap. And the first thing I do is write 750 words. And it's a meditation. It's getting the crap out of my head. The anger, the dread, the overwhelm. All that's gone. And then the next thing I do is I get started building something. Because I know, at 7 o'clock the dog has to go out, and then my son's getting up to go to school, and at 8 o'clock I'm going into the office, and the phone's going to ring, and there's going to be Slack messages and Facebook and all this stuff, right? And so for the rest of the day, I'm being busy, but I'm not necessarily being productive in growing my business.
And that's a huge difference that people need to understand. Busy and productive are not necessarily the same thing. You may only need 1 hour of production a day.
That's right.
And then the rest of it is putting out fires and just keeping things from falling apart. And sometimes it can be as simple as that.
100%. Like every gym owner I know is busy, 14 hours a day, whatever it is. But the key is like, are you being productive? Even 1 hour a day out of that, And that was an epiphany I had before I found my first mentor. Was I just pulled a 14-hour day. I'm exhausted. I can't tell you what I did on that. I didn't feel like anything was going to be different tomorrow or a week from now. So this book is really about, setting yourself up to build a skill of focus. And I think that the way you build a skill is you establish a habit, and the way that you establish a habit is through practice. And most of us don't get that practice unless we're working with a coach. And that's where coaching really is important, is helping you, enforcing your practice, building a habit, and then becoming better at it.
That makes total sense, because you think about it from an accountability standpoint.
Oh yeah.
You have someone to answer to.
Yeah.
There you have a deadline. I think that's one of the biggest things when I joined with the accountability with my mentor Anastasia. It was awesome to have an in-person.
The most hold you accountable mentor on the team, right?
Yeah, and she's probably perfect for me because she doesn't take any of my bullshit. So,
born in Moscow, still has a Russian accent, emigrated to New Zealand, doesn't know English, became a cage fighter, and she's an accountant. I mean, you want accountability, it's Ed.
And it was great because for that first few years, or maybe first year, I spent that entire year learning how to focus.
Oh yeah,
learning how to focus for 5 or 10 minutes at a time, and just doing one little thing that would help the business that would be 10 times better than anything else I could do in that 10 minutes. And I essentially equivalated to I spent that first year just peeling squirrels off the steering wheel until I only had 1 or 2 squirrels to contend with on any given day, because I still have ADHD, I still get distracted, but I can give an hour or 2 of hard focus every single day before the squirrel takes the wheel, and then it's just off to the races until bedtime. So,
you have legit ADHD, and the thing about ADHD is that people with ADHD can also get into deep focus.
Oh yeah,
a lot of people can. And most entrepreneurs that tell me I have ADHD, they don't. They just don't have mental discipline.
Right.
And so people who really have ADHD, they understand, like, okay, I actually have this opportunity to focus deeply for 1 hour if I can set myself up for success.
Yeah, you just have to be careful.
You do.
With the deep focus, you can drain your brain to the point where I went into deep focus on semi-private last week or the week before, and I had to go pick my son up from school, and it was 3 hours of just focus on this one thing. Hyper-focus is what they call it. And I missed like 3 turns to pick my son up that I pick up every single day. And then I couldn't focus enough to know which turn was the school on the street. And I'm like, I'm fried. I have to.
Or I guarantee this happens. Your wife's talking to you, and you don't even hear her because you're so focused. Yeah, absolutely.
It's wild when you get into those hyper focuses. But man, you can get some stuff done if you utilize it correctly.
Exactly.
Aren't watching Netflix.
Yeah.
And thinking about, I wonder what would happen if there really was a serial killer in our town.
Don't waste the gift.
Yeah, don't waste it on stuff like that, because you can go deep.
Yeah.
So I love this idea about habits. I love that the golden hour, I feel like it really represents that, like, first thing in the morning when your brain is fresh. And especially, again, I keep bringing about the ADD because, for those of us that are battling that, at the end of the day, you are mentally exhausted. Like, that golden hour is gone. Unless you have that second wind. Some of us get that second wind around 11 p.m. But then you're up till 2, and then you're exhausted the next day. So it's just that constant, you're paying the piper somewhere. So I think it's really important to mention that the golden hour, best case, is before everybody wakes up, before your phone starts ringing, before the emails are flying off the hinges, and anything can possibly go wrong and distract you.
Yeah, there are people who tell me all the time, like, no, I'm best in the evening after the kids are in bed and stuff. And maybe that's true, but I've
bless
never.
Their hearts.
Yeah, bless their hearts. I don't know anybody who is like actively doing this that's getting the best results without doing it.
I agree. For me, it was 4 a.m. for a long time. And it was an hour. Well, it was 30 minutes on the treadmill, and then an hour. And then my son would be up between 5:30 and 6, and that's when I'm done. Right? I'm all his at that point. And that's where I learned this whole balanced CEO. Started putting it all together that you could have your cake and eat it too in terms of being productive. Then being a dad, fully focused on being a dad. Then he leaves for school, and then I'm back to being focused as a CEO again. That's cool. So it was, you find those things and those rhythms, but it all starts with building a habit.
Yeah, and it sounds like what you just described. It sounds to most people like, wow, Chris has really amazing schedule discipline.
Right.
And maybe the first couple of days it did take discipline, but now it's a habit, and so like it's not mentally taxing for you.
No. It's just normal.
Yeah.
It's no different than getting up, everybody gets up, go straight to the bathroom. Like, it becomes that routine where it's get up, go to the bathroom, put your shoes on, treadmill.
Yeah, exactly.
Desk. Like, just boom, boom, boom. That's how it works.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about flow states. I know you have a interesting way of putting yourself into a flow state. So for someone that doesn't understand flow state, can you kind of explain what that is and why it's important?
Yeah, I mean, so this is really popular. Like, athletes understand it. They would describe it as being like in the zone. And the best book I've ever read on it was written by Al Way, and he calls it Thinking Body, Dancing Mind. So your body is doing something, like it's busy enough that that you don't have to think about what you're doing, but your body is occupied. So it could be showering, right? A lot of people will say, I have my best ideas in the shower. Well, if you think about it, your body is moving in like automated habitual patterns in the shower. So your mind is free to think. Or people will say, I have my best ideas while driving. Same thing. Your body's occupied, so your brain is free to dance. And so you can control that and initiate flow state by doing any type of movement. Like treadmill, I'm sure you're getting there, right? For me, it's always been manual labor because I grew up on a farm. And so when I need to do a lot of deep thinking, it's like I'm going to go cut the grass, I'm going to chop wood, I'm going to move gravel around in my driveway, I'm going to drive my tractor, I'm going to cut a tree down. Like that always puts me in the flow state. And it's like your heart rate's not elevated, but you're still moving your body enough that your brain is just free.
I love it. And I think for most people, the idea of flow state is probably new in general, because I don't think they realize like your best creative work comes after your brain has been freed. You have to unlock your brain, right, to get that best effort. So for me, I realized 30 minutes on the treadmill was a double-edged sword. It was helping me with my weight loss, and it was getting my brain primed for writing, right? So I was at 500 words a day at that time, and I listened to you talk about, I just write whatever's on my mind, and usually it'll flush out into something, and sometimes it doesn't. But at least it's the habit of the keystrokes, the words, again, turning it into a lifestyle, essentially.
That's really what meditation is. Like meditation is watching your thoughts, and for me, watching my thoughts means watching them appear on the screen as I'm typing. And
right.
To be honest, like most of the time when I'm typing, either my eyes are closed or I'm not looking at the screen. So that's how I can get into flow in the morning. And to be honest, Chris, like I wrote a book about this before I wrote any book about business. And so we were studying the brain and doing working with kids with traumatic brain injury at Catalyst in like 2009, like a long time ago. We wrote a book about it. We used to tour around and teach, and eventually we were supposed to be CrossFit Brain. And Greg's big initiative with CrossFit around 2014 was we're going to put like chest puzzles on the website every rest day. We're going to travel around and talk to people with autism. And he was sponsoring the World Chess Championships, and he sent me to the World Memory Championships and all sort of stuff. So that's always been a key interest of mine. But it's just interesting how it helps with business and lifestyle.
And I think that's one of my favorite things about doing these podcasts. I learn cool stuff like this. Where, what a phenomenal thing to be able to help people with brain injuries and things along those lines, and just be able to use fitness in a way that most people would never ever register as a way fitness can benefit people, right? But let's talk about something that I think most of this audience is going to want to know about, and that's being a CEO and utilizing fitness in a positive way. Because I know we've had conversations in the past where we've discussed fitness can actually be a double-edged sword. It can cut the wrong way if you're not careful. So what's your thoughts on that in terms of how would you recommend a CEO balances that, especially with their competitive mindset? Some of them probably want to go real hard.
Yeah, that can be, you're right, that can be more harmful than anything else, because like your body doesn't know the difference between physical and mental stress. And so if you're coming out of a stressful situation, you're going into the gym, you're hitting like a crazy hard workout, for the next few minutes you'll feel okay because the workout requires all of your attention and you won't be ruminating on your stressful thing. But after that workout, your body's just dumping more and more cortisol into your bloodstream. And you just go down this spiral of stress on your body and in your mind. And like I said, your body doesn't know the difference. So too much hard training, high intensity interval training, I don't think is good for people who work with stress a lot. I think you do want that sometimes. You got to clear the decks. I get it. But most of the time, my thinking is done either in heart rate zone 2 or, I call flow state zone 1 because you are motivated.
You're not stressing. That's right. I think zone 2, you're getting to that stress point where now you're focused on your breathing. How's my breathing? How's my cadence?
Exactly. You have to pay attention.
I find that with the running has given me freedom that I sorely missed as an overweight obese person for so many years. And the number one thing I love about it is I get into that zone 1, zone 2. And I found that 135 to 140 heart rate, I can just drift off, and I have some of the best thinking, and problem solving in my entire life.
I get it.
And I'm out there sweating my balls off, but at the same time, I'm solving the world's problems.
Yeah,
At least in
yeah.
my head I am.
Exactly. But there's a lot to that, and like, so if you, another thing besides cortisol, which is the stress hormone, if you have a crazy hard workout and you absolutely demolish yourself, the next thing that's going to happen is your body's going to say, I need carbohydrates right now. And so you create this insulin spike. Well, your brain, I mean, you have ADHD, but even people who don't have ADHD, you can't focus on that much carb. Like a big spike like that. So you start going into this cycle of stress, lack of focus, stress, lack of focus. Most of us try to self-medicate with caffeine, and it just gets worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
So you have to know what the difference is, and like I think of us as mental CEO, like professional mental athletes, and it's our job more than anything else to train our brain and our body. So that means like I need to do zone 2.
That is a great way to put it.
Mental athletes.
So I've got to ask this question, and I know your answer is going to obviously be different than anyone else's because we all have different ways of different definitions of balance.
Sure, yeah.
How do you balance an 8-figure business, being a dad to, you got one in college, you got one on the way to college.
Yeah.
You've got a wife, obviously, that wants to see you, right? Sometimes.
Yeah.
You've got 80 employees.
Yeah.
You are an author. You do podcasts. You speak. You have speaking engagements. You're traveling all over the country for stuff like this.
Yeah.
How do you balance all that for someone that's like, I've done an amazing job building this massive company, but I gave it all to my company. And I want to start pulling back and getting some of myself back. Like, what are some tips or tricks? How would you recommend someone starts that process?
I think at first it's survival, and like I don't believe that you can compete on multiple fields of play at the same time. Some people say they can. Like I can be a competitive athlete and I can be a CEO. I don't think that's true.
I agree.
But also, what I learned from Dan Martell is that you have to think about it. Don't think about balance, think about integration. And I think you already do this, which is just like when I am focused on work from 5:30 a.m. until about 7, that is all I'm focused on. And if the dog gets up early and comes down and he wants to go out early, like I'm mad. But from 7 until 8, when it comes to getting my son, out the door out of the bus, like that is all I'm focused on. So I'm not checking my phone. And then when I'm working out, like people on the team know they do not book meetings Tuesday or Thursday morning because Chris is on the bike, And a lot of that is like there's external discipline of setting my schedule. There's internal discipline which I'm not as good at, but then there's also like the support. So I have a very strong COO too, right? Robin is the COO of our house. I mean, she is the house. And years ago when I opened the gym, like she quit her job, And so I know I can pick up and travel because she's got it.
Right. So it's a combination of having the right support systems in place, obviously having the right people in your support system. I've started learning that, hiring assistant, house manager, things like that, because my wife and I both own our own company. So there is no COO of the house. We have to hire one.
Yeah, but that's you buying back your time too, right?
Right.
Because like the last thing you guys want to do on Sunday is the laundry.
Yep. Or any other day that ends in Y, preferably.
Yeah, no, but right, like you want to be with each other when you're not with your work, and so yeah, you gotta buy back your time somewhere.
I love that idea that integration versus balance.
Yeah.
Right. I call it balance because I think it's important that all three of health and fitness, and then your family and your business are connected, and they all support each other.
I like balance better. Like, because Dan's idea of integration was do 2 things at the same time. So I'm gonna run a mastermind group this weekend. Well, we're all gonna go skiing, and that's gonna be the mastermind. I can't do that. I need to partition so balance sticks with me.
I love that, and I think Jason Kleba calls it the AMRAP mentality, where it's one focus at a time, and it's for time, and this is all I'm going to do in that time. And I think a lot of people just lack that ability to time block, and they have to learn it. It's not something that just happens. For most people, it's a learned behavior. It's not something that comes naturally.
Yeah, you have to practice it too. Like, I lose that ability if I don't practice it.
If I go on vacation, it is the hardest thing in the world to come back and immediately get back to like that rigid schedule, because I just float around and let my ADD run wild for 10 days. So it's always really hard. But again, it's a learned thing. And I think what I want people to understand with this, and whoever's listening or watching this, is it's never perfect. Right? It's never 100% correct. Life is going to throw shit at you. Your kids are going to change. They're going to require different things. Sports, your wife's going to need different things. Your business is going to, requirements are going to change. So it's a constant cat and mouse.
And you have to be careful not to drive them nuts too. Like, you know, for years, I would take my laptop with us on vacation. I'd get up at 5:30. I would do my 7 to 50 words. I'd start doing work. And then by 7 o'clock, I'm like, okay, the day has begun. Everybody out of bed, let's go. And they would be like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I like to sleep.
Yeah, so like, you know, when you're on vacation, you have to be on vacation. I did a little bit better on vacation.
That's one thing that I had to work really hard on. We go to Hawaii every year for Thanksgiving, and I found myself getting sucked into work every time. And now I have the right team in place that I can be like, okay, I'm turning it off. Right? I'll check in once a week. I'll give you 30 minutes. You just download me on everything, and then I'm gone again. And I think that's something that you talked about, is that inner and outer discipline. But I think it goes beyond that, of having boundaries. And that is something that is, again, a learning. You have to teach people how to respect your boundaries, because they're going to try to push them.
Yeah.
And if you allow that, you're going to have to start all over, because now you've given them that.
Yeah. You've taught them how to treat them.
Right. So you have to hold your boundaries no matter what for a while, but eventually everyone will figure it out and realize, okay, can't mess with them now.
Yeah. You know, and I try to keep even channels discreet, so like Slack is just for your brain, personal cell phone, like nobody texts me on my personal cell phone, you know, stuff like that. Like, and that does help a little bit too, because if I'm working through a problem with 2 brain, I just take Slack off my phone.
I love that. I just found out about this app called Opal that I'm really excited to try, where it allows you to block social media, and you literally can't get into it for windows of time.
Nice.
And for me, that's like my worst downfall, is I can get into a real scrolling mission, and the squirrels have taken the wheel, and I don't even know how I could be time traveling for 3 hours and not even realize that I've just wasted half my day.
Every time you say that, I think of that Over the Hedge movie, and the squirrel drinks a can of soda.
That's exactly what my brain is.
Exactly, yeah. The whole earth is like slow compared to his brain. That's amazing.
When things get extremely stressful, the world slows like that for me. I feel like I'm in my element. When it's just like when the whole world's on fire around me, and I'm like, now finally, it's my moment to shine.
That's right. That's awesome. I'm equipped for this.
Yeah, but when it's like the most basic problem, I'm like, this sucks. I hate everything about this. Like, I don't want to deal with it.
Well, you know, the other thing that happens, and Bill Henniger and I were just talking about this today too, is that when really smart people, as soon as they feel like, okay, I've solved the problem, I've solved the puzzle, they're instantly bored. So they don't want to just keep repeating stuff. Like, okay, I'll do a Facebook post. Okay, I could do it better. Oh, that was good. I never want to do it again.
Yeah.
And that's a big challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs too. And that's where the habit needs to take over and say, you do it not because you feel inspired to do it. You do it because it's Monday, it's 5:30 a.m. and it's time to do it.
And I think that brings back to one of the phrases that I've really lived on since the summit, which is virtuosity.
Yeah.
And the importance of doing those fundamental basic things extraordinarily well. And consistently. And I've really been on a tangent with that, and I want to kind of finish off with this. I've really been on a focus with that, about why people bag on small businesses so much. And I think it's because they know exactly what the service level and experience is going to be at a corporate level company. And if you're not doing virtuosity in your small business, it's a crapshoot what you're going to get every day, and that's why they get frustrated. It's not because your product can be better, but if the delivery is different every single time, people don't like that. They want consistency.
Yeah, it really shows up in any service business where it's like, hey, is Chris here? I'll come back. I don't want to deal with anybody else. And that's, unfortunately, like you can only ever be one person. And if that's how your customer will only deal with you, you're never going to get out of your business. You always have a job.
Yeah, your business, you're working for your business, not the other way around. Chris, I really appreciate your time, man. I know you were super busy. I know you just flew in today. I really appreciate this.
No, thank you.
As always, guys, if you're listening to this, his version of balance is different than mine. It's different than anyone else you've heard. The goal here is for you to find that avatar that you line up with and can see yourself being and try to identify things that they're doing right. So if you found something with Chris, definitely do that. Absolutely pick up his book, Golden Hour. It'll be on Amazon, Kindle,
Audible.
Awesome. So all the different formats you can think of. Support an amazing guy that's helping out thousands of people. And as always, keep digging.